You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. All right. And we're back talking it out, season 2. This is our comeback episode, and we finally have a guest on. And it's our good friend, Riley, who's a Texan / Coloradan now. Coloradan?
I think it is Coloradan, but it just doesn't sound right.
Yeah, Coloradan. We're going to go with that. He is a earth nerd.
Environmental geoscience major, bro. Get it right.
With 2 minors, so he's hella smart. Ladies, he's taken. Our audience is all ladies, so sorry about it. But yeah, Riley's gonna come on the podcast today. He's gonna talk to us about some environmental problems and climate change, and hopefully we learn something. I'm sure we would, because I don't know too much in the subject. I know what the media has tried to tell me, but we're not gonna get into that today.
Yeah, don't get me started.
But all right, Riley.
Well, it's good to be here, guys. I've been waiting to get on with you guys for a while now. With the minors, the minor in chemistry is when I need to flex a little bit, because that shit is. Oh wait, can I cuss?
Yeah, you can cuss.
All right. Yeah, because that shit was hard, and it's definitely worth it. So the minor in chemistry, yeah, geology, who cares about that? But the chemistry one is the one you got to emphasize a little bit.
Yeah. I've never been good in chemistry. I took it in high school, and my teacher was only there because she slept with her former principal. So we won't get into that, though. Yeah, she sucks. I hope you're having a terrible life. You're the worst teacher I've ever had. But anyway, we're not going to get into there.
Shout out Miss Morris. She was actually a really good teacher. Even though I didn't learn anything, I got an A in that class. Yes, sir.
But all right. I have a couple questions actually for Riley that I've come up with, and I think this is a big one. And is climate change and global warming, when you say climate change, is that essentially the same thing? Because I feel like I've heard them be used in separate terms. Like when someone says global warming, is that the same thing as climate change, or are they kind of different?
Well, they're roughly talking about the same thing, because they changed the name because Al Gore was going hardcore with global warming back whenever he did, what was that, early 2000s, late 90s?
Late 90s.
And so they changed it to climate change because, that the one party, I won't say any names, I'll try not to say any names in this, but the one party, they were really against global warming. So they're like, because Al Gore was so crazy. So they kind of rebranded a little bit and was like, all right, here's climate change. Now, it is technically the same thing because, our temperatures are rising right now. I think we're at, our average global temperatures raised by I think we're at 0.0, let me see, I think I pulled up 0.09 Celsius. And so we're trying to limit that a lot. So that's what the Paris Agreement was to do, was to get all these countries together and be like, we have to stop it before it gets above this much warming. But, climate change has a bunch of different factors with extreme weather. So that's why you have the polar vortex from a few years ago. So it's not just warming, but it's a bunch of different environmental issues that come along with it. So climate change is a better term, but practically global warming is climate change. But I wouldn't say climate change is all just global warming.
Yeah, so you would say it's embedded into the whole thing as a whole. Because my second question, which you pretty much already answered already, was, do you think it could get more of a following from a certain group of people? Because a lot of times I feel like people just want to rip on it, like global warming, and they just want to focus on the warming part, but not the globe as a whole. And I feel like you answered that. Because this year alone, how many hurricanes have we had just this year?
Probably a couple. I would say probably 3.
Three or 4.
That's pretty embarrassing.
Well, so the one thing with climate change is, and I don't think it actually increases the number of hurricanes, but I believe it increases the intensity of them. So I believe they do get strong. That one thing with that is hurricanes are going to be, on average, you're going to have more category 4s, per year. It's going to seem like you're going to get hit with harder and harder hurricanes every year.
Yeah.
But the one thing I will say, with global warming is a lot of the arguments against, climate change stuff, the people who are deniers, they nitpick every single thing you say, so that's why global warming didn't work out, because it's like, oh, well, it's getting cold. It was colder on average this year than it was last year, something like that. But, that's just weather, and that's not the same thing as climate. because climate is it's average of weather of over 30 years for, a given area or, specific region. So it's a lot more data than just weather, because weather can change every single day. It could be, like today it's 60, but it's supposed to get like 15 tomorrow and for here in Denver.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, which was the fact that like there's always this stigma behind the climate change where it's like, oh, the climate always changes throughout the past thousands of years. There's different climates over 100 period time. So I hear that a lot where it's like, okay, well, we're just in a different era. The climate is changing. That's just the regular cycle of the earth. Like I'm not said the argument against that per se, but like that doesn't really make sense to me in the sense that I've been living on this planet for some 20 years and I've noticed the climate significantly change in a sense where I am right now. I mean, in Florida, growing up, it was probably average 90 degrees and now it's summertime, 105, feels like 113. I'm like, obviously that has something to do with it, right? Or maybe I'm just sounding like a simp.
no. Well, let's see. I kind of forgot your question there for a second, but whatever. So what I'm just saying is, climate's definitely, we go through cycles. We go through warmings, we go through coolings. We have little ice ages. I'm pretty sure there was an ice age in 1300. There was a little ice age is what they called it. But the difference between now and the climate changing is what is happening is not supposed to naturally happen with some of the environmental factors that we have. Like, desertification, the polar ice caps melting at the rate they are is just not natural. And I believe we're supposed to be in a cooling period right now anyway, over a warming period. And even if there was, we don't have the greenhouse gas amounts that we would if it was just a natural cycle change. Like there's so many other factors going into it than just warming and cooling. And that's the simplification of, climate change and what it is what skews a lot of it.
How much do you think like climate change has been just like politicized in a sense? Because to me, it seems like this shouldn't be like a left versus right, or even a debate in general. This should be like a humans against climate change, but instead we're like picking sides,
Well, it 100% is politicized and that is really what the difference is, environmental regulation, to be sustainable does not go with capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we have one side that's all, hardcore pro free market and capitalism. So, they really try to hardcore, instead of just being like, well, we don't want to screw the economy up or take any chances, they just deny everything else that the other side is saying, which kind of skews a lot of the arguments. But it's just, that is what it is.
So what are some factors, or is the main cause of climate change, is it us as humans? Like, as you're saying, like the natural cycle of things, it shouldn't be doing this even.
Oh, well, yeah. So what you're looking for there, it's called anthropogenic sources. So anthropogenic means human caused. So all these factors are coming in. So, greenhouse gas emissions, the trash everywhere, land use from, agriculture, infrastructure, and deforestation, massive, the new extinction, going on right now. Sixth mass extinction is what it's called, but those are all human caused sources.
Yeah. Now, I know obviously there's 7+ billion people on the planet now. I'm not exactly sure what's that. Is it like 7.2 now, I think?
I think so, yeah.
But in America, we only have
60 million people.
360 million people. I personally feel like even though we can make regulations and stuff, how much, if America were to completely change, would really help the globe, because we're such a small part of the world. We have China, who I know, and what city is it? Shanghai? It's like, you've seen
Shanghai,
pictures.
Hong Kong, Beijing, they all have huge populations.
Just smog and stuff, like it would have to be a global effort beyond just America. Even if we were to change from, we were go Elon all the way, and
Well, we're the difference between America and every other country on this earth is we're the pioneers. We influence so much of media and culture with our music and movies that and if you go to a country, they have a lot of their own too. They never get to America like you would. Like you'd be surprised, but we do have the largest, media presence in an art form. So like, in that sense, with a lot of what we do, it is a catalyst for other countries to follow. Now the issue right now with India and with China, because they aren't a first world country. That's not, they're classified kind of like, they're not third world, but they're developing, and they're kind of that in between. But they believe that they're polluting insane amounts. I mean, more than us, but it is because that they believe that to get to a first world country, because we polluted so much to get to where we are, they believe they should be able to do the same till they get here. And so the fossil fuels being burned out by India, by China, is just something that they right now don't really care about, because they are just trying to become a world power as well.
Yeah.
And see us as hypocrites for trying to stop them from doing that, even though that's how we got here.
So what would be the better option as opposed to fossil fuels? I mean, I've heard electric cars and things might be a better option or a better route, but I've also heard that causes just as much pollutants, is it solar energy, wind energy? Like, what is the proper way to go to have less emissions in the atmosphere?
Well, no, I mean, definitely switching from high greenhouse gas emitting sources would change immensely, like coal. There's no such thing as clean coal. Get that straight. Coal is coal. There is no clean coal.
Say that, thank God.
They don't, it's not perfect. Nothing, we don't have anything that's perfect, but for us to switch, that's what the, pro oil, pro gas people are saying. They're like, well, electric isn't perfect, so why would we make the switch? Or like, they have this issue, but, as a whole, it's better. But it's not perfect. It's not a perfect system. The battery systems with lithium and everything. I don't know what actually kind of battery Tesla uses, but it's still it's still toxic if it's not disposed of properly. And that's kind of like, they use that as like it's just like it's another fallacy, because all they use is different types of fallacies, and so it's just a diversion tactic practically.
So for our listeners that might not be as scientifically inclined, obviously you've always known a lot more about science, but I understand some things in science. When you say greenhouse gases, what exactly are these emissions doing? It has to do with our atmospheres, right? Like our ozone layer?
Yeah, so the greenhouse effect. So I mean, this is so greenhouse effect, we have a bunch of gases up above the earth, and that makes up our atmospheres, that makes up troposphere, or well, I guess we're in the troposphere, but anything above that, I don't really remember which ones were, but then ozone's at the top. And so ozone is just, it's 3 oxygen molecules, blah, blah, blah. And so when the sun shoots down ultraviolet radiation and infrared radiation and some gamma rays. But so ozone is really good at deflecting ultraviolet rays. And so if we didn't have the ozone layer, we would burn up and die. Have you seen the one, I think it's Terminator movie, and something happens and like the sun pierces through the atmosphere and it just starts melting everything?
No,
all right, never mind.
no.
All right, you guys haven't seen that.
Sorry, guy.
That sounds like a scary movie though, dude.
It was on, yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. I watched it a long time ago. But and so, some UV radiation gets in, some infrared radiation gets in, and and so infrared kind of gets absorbed into our atmosphere. That keeps our planet the temperature it is. So we don't freeze up if we didn't have the sun, because like we wouldn't be able to live without the sun. And so ultraviolet radiation can either be absorbed or it'll bounce off of Earth's planet off surface. Like, so there's albedo effect and stuff like that. That's what it's called. And so when ultraviolet radiation bounces off Earth's surface, it bounces back as infrared radiation. And so that will either bounce back and leave the atmosphere again, or it'll get absorbed, or it'll bounce off greenhouse gases and stay again in the atmosphere. So the more greenhouse gases that we have, because the ultraviolet radiation, I don't believe is affected as much as the greenhouse gases or even at all. But I know infrared radiation is.
So this infrared radiation, are you saying it's getting through the atmosphere when it should be reflected back away? and this is causing the planet to warm up?
No, what it does is it's keeping more of the infrared radiation inside the Earth more than it should, instead of it getting expelled into the atmosphere.
And it's more staying in here due to the amount of greenhouse gases we have in the atmosphere,
Yes.
and that we're putting out in the atmosphere.
And so that gets absorbed, and that's what's causing the raise in temperatures.
Okay.
And so
Now-
carbon, what
were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, like, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. Chlorofluorocarbon, CFCs, which are a greenhouse gas, and that's also what destroys ozone, because that was what made the hole in the ozone layer. We used to use that in hairsprays, and I think it was in refrigerant coolants back in the day, like the 50s and 60s. And so, yeah, so that, and we didn't produce a lot of CFCs, but the thing that made that so deadly is to the ozone is because the chlorine molecules in the chlorofluorocarbon are super reactive, because chlorine is a highly electronegative element. It's always looking to react with something. So it pop one of the oxygen molecules off of an ozone, because think of it like, if you guys remember like chemistry, it'd be like 3 oxygens, and then one would have a single bond, and then one would have a double bond. And so that one with a single bond would be looking to be bonded to something else. Do you guys remember like the octet rule and stuff, how it had to have like 8 electrons? No.
But
All
I
right.
mean, you're doing a pretty good job explaining it. if I'm
Yeah,
honest
yeah.
with you.
Better
Okay,
than
so-
my high school.
Well, so oxygen, it needs two bonds. It needs to bond to at least 2 things.
Okay.
And so chlorine would come in and bond to that oxygen and pull that oxygen off of the ozone. And so then that ozone would form oxygen gas, O2, for the 2 oxygen molecules in the left. So then you'll have a chlorine molecule attached to an oxygen molecule. And then chlorine would then attach, or then because that oxygen again doesn't have that second bond, it's still going to be very reactive and look for another oxygen molecule. And then so it kind of just keeps going through that cycle of grabbing oxygen molecules and pulling it off of ozone. And so like I think one chlorine atom can like destroy thousands of molecules of ozone.
So it's slowly, you're saying, shredding the oxygen of the ozone layer, making it smaller, essentially, is what.
Yeah, so that's why there's that hole, because we did not have CFCs for very long, and for the damage that it did is insane. Like, so that ozone layer is over the Arctic, and it moves around because it'll move over Australia, and there's like certain months in Australia where, like, you either have to cover every single part of your skin because you'll get like instant 3rd-degree sunburns.
Does that have to tie into the Australian fires that were earlier this year, or is that just fire?
No, that just had to do with like droughts and stuff like that.
Gotcha. I was just wondering if that had a correlation. I don't know if you might know the answer, but or the environmental community, or if you learned it. Let's say we lowered our greenhouse emissions to a level that obviously isn't perfect. How long would it take the atmosphere to rebuild what we've taken from it? Would it take hundreds of years? Would it be something?
Oh, so for like to build back up the ozone layer?
Yes.
I don't actually know that statistic. I do know that it has been doing pretty well lately. I don't know. There's still a hole, believe me, but I know it's not getting bigger as of now. I don't know that answer to that one.
Gotcha. I wasn't sure if that's something that they even know. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like how long they would predict it.
Yes. Well, so that's just the CFCs, and we banned those in the 80s. I want to say 80s, maybe. And so there's a bunch of other greenhouse gases. Methane is a huge one, and that's the big one from agriculture, from cows and stuff like that.
So when it comes to your curriculum, like, do they obviously they talk about climate change and the negative effects of it. Do they ever discuss like the business aspect of it? Like if there's like a way to still maximize profits, because obviously we're both business majors, and I don't know about Jake's school, but my school basically taught that if you're the only way to be successful in a business is maximize profits. So is there a way to keep that type of idea of maximizing profits, but also sustaining the earth properly and removing emissions and doing things like that? Do they ever talk about that? Or?
Well, yeah, a little bit. It's hard because, you know, capitalism is based off of a unlimited supply. You know, it's not, made to order, sustainable. It is produce as much as you can, and we'll try to sell as much as you can. The rest gets thrown away because of the processes they do to try and minimize, just manufacturing. They're gonna, it's just cheaper for them to produce a lot more. So then for maximizing profit for that, it just comes to what is being made, how it's being made, and is it, and I'll get into recycling later, but, is it being recycled, or like what is, it's a whole process, I guess, of every single factor to be sustainable for the environment. But capitalism is good at adapting. And so I think, right now I know as hard as our president has made it for green energy to succeed, it is really booming right now. It's the highest it's ever been. It is outperforming. It's cheaper for green energy, or right now, renewable energy than it is for non-renewable energy.
Would Tesla be considered a green company?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Electric cars definitely green. I mean, the battery issue it's something everybody talks about, but it is not as big of a deal as it's just another.
As the truck that I see fly by me with smoke coming out of its exhaust and.
Yeah. Tell me about that one, bro. I don't even want to talk about that.
It's like, this guy.
People do that to their cars. They'll literally cut the exhaust, so when they rev their engine, they'll just shoot out a bunch of gas. I'm like, appreciate it, guy. I hope your kids breathe that in, you dick.
Yeah.
But anyways.
No, with maximizing profits, I mean, you definitely can. I know there are definitely green companies that do. Most there's a lot of companies that make all their stuff off recyclable things, and so I mean, I guess you could say that's maximizing profit and being green in a sense. But it's tough. You gotta. It's because the free market and stuff like that is it's hard to know what's gonna happen, or else investing would be easy and everyone would be a millionaire.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So you mentioned recycling. Some people don't give a shit about recycling. How is recycling, how important of a factor is that play? Let's say everyone every week recycled. Would that make a difference with anything, or is that just
right now?
Yeah.
Like in our current system? Oh, it wouldn't do shit.
Won't do shit.
Because our recycling process is completely bullshit. Like the percentages that we recycle things actually is so small because, I mean, plastic recycling started off as a fallacy, started off as just a fraud by oil companies because they didn't want plastic bans. So in the 80s and 90s, they started hardcore campaigning, spent millions of dollars in advertisements to promote plastic recycling, because they were worried about single-use plastics being banned because there was a big uprising about, the litter, the trash and stuff like that. And so they knew when they started pushing for that advertisement, they already knew that plastic recycling was not going to be feasible in the long run because economically it's too hard to sort it, redo it. Someone has to buy it in the first place for it to be remade. And then plastic just degrades after every recycle. So, I mean, it's not an infinite loop of anything. So they knew that I wasn't going to be able to work at efficient rates. So they hardcore started pushing it. And practically what they did with that is they put the burden on the consumer for plastic instead of the manufacturer. So they got off scot-free while instead they made it our problem that we had to recycle it. And recycling, only 12% of plastics that get recycled or that get thrown in a recycling bin get recycled.
Okay, because I've heard this. I mean, I thought that this was just a load of shit. I mean, I lived with a bunch of, I'm not going to label them out, but they're anti-recycling people. And they would tell me, they'd be like, oh, my daddy told me that basically everything that you throw in the recycle bin is just going to be thrown right into the dumpster. I mean,
I would say, depending on what it is, paper gets recycled. Paper and cardboard and stuff gets recycled at a really good rate. That's probably the best one to recycle. Glass is very important because glass is becoming a very finite resource right now, or sand and stuff like that.
And just throw some sand in the furnace.
Well, yeah, there's different types of sand. But
That
Um,
was a Minecraft joke.
but
Sorry.
it is becoming it is the second scarcest resource right now, I think, behind water.
Wow. I didn't know that actually.
Yeah.
About
So
glass.
glass is very important to recycle, and we still use it in single-use forms that we shouldn't. Um, but glass recycling has some issues with toxicity and stuff with how it gets recycled. And there's some, it doesn't get recycled at great rates either. But yeah, plastic
I always
recycling.
thought that recycling was like the end all be all, to be honest with you, until I heard.
That's what they make it out to be, and so it is definitely it is a conspiracy more than anything by
Well,
oil companies. But
take that, Dad. Like out
yeah,
there.
plastic. So most of because that symbol you see. Okay, let me share my screen. Hold on, all right.
Oh, she's okay. Screen shared.
If you guys don't know, Riley Garlinghouse is like 6'1". He's pretty cute,
Yeah.
3.
but he does
Thank
have a
you.
girlfriend.
Yeah.
Don't discredit my name here.
But she lives far away most of the time. So if you want to slide in there, make him take him skiing or something.
I don't think we should have said that.
All right, hold on.
No, I'm sorry, Macy. Heart.
You got friends, Macy? I'm lonely. I like I was a puppy.
Yeah, he just got a puppy.
So you disabled screen sharing us.
I disabled it?
It's not for the
You nuts.
No, I can fix it.
audience, but
Sorry.
You could say fascist.
I can? Oh, you fascist. Dang, so my roommates were right when they were saying that they were throwing most of the recyclables away.
All right, try now. Can you do it now?
let me see. Hold on. Okay.
It says all participants. Boom.
So do you see the screen?
Yes. Yes,
Oh,
we
wow.
see.
So this is from this project I did for this class. I mean, it was my entire semester, and it was about how recycling was a fraud. But so this picture, these are the symbols that you see on a plastic device, single-use plastic, right? You see these symbols.
So it actually tells you like how much use you can get out of it? I didn't.
No. This is not. This has nothing to do with recycling.
Oh, okay.
This is just the sorting system for plastics. And so anti-plastic people have been like, or I forgot the organization, whatever that was called, but they were begging plastic companies. They said, stop putting the symbols in these triangle shapes that look like the chasing arrows because they aren't recyclable. It's just the sorting system in plastic. So I think 7 here can get plastic or can get recycled. Wait, let's see. Number 5 and number 1 are the most cycled. Yeah, so 5 is probably propylene, whatever, probably ethylene over here. And so those are. How do I stop screen share? I return to meeting.
So is this more of like just?
Wait, am I on the wrong screen?
I see the right.
No, I see the numbers and stuff.
Okay.
All right, your
All right.
screen's not sharing anymore.
Well, so that's just the sorting system. So most of those so it sorts what type of plastic it is, and then how it can either get recycled or if it can get recycled at all. But they put it all like it is that symbol, like it can. And so only certain, recycling facilities can only do certain numbers at the same time. So there's a high chance you could be recycling like a 3, and the facility near your place can only does like 1 in 5. So then everything else just goes to landfill. And then a huge thing we do is we love to ship our recycling to other countries. And right now it's Indonesia. And it ends up all just in their villages. And it's disgusting, honestly. It's terrible what we do to these people. And practically instead of, us dealing with our own garbage, we just throw it into a third world country's backyard.
Sounds like America.
And when it comes to like the recycling process, like isn't it state by state too? Because I know my family that lives in New York, they have like a very strict recycling process where they have to they have to put in glasses and then plastics and this and that. But now it kind of just sounds like it doesn't even matter. They're just throwing all the shit away mostly.
Well, it definitely can vary from state to state because some communities can definitely have better systems. They can be like, oh, you need to do this, so it makes it easier on our people. Because I mean, a lot of this stuff, it's like it's based on the people at this facility. You know, they could be like, God, I don't want to grind through this little patch. I'll just throw that in the landfill. And so it's just it's different. It's not a great system at all in any sort of the way. Like we have to fix either what we're using, reducing how much we use is the only way to fix that issue, I believe, in my opinion. Reduction and using reusable, like, you know, instead of plastic bags, you bring that bag to go grocery shopping with, you know, whatever. That is the better system.
My roommates for years made fun of me that I would have the plastic, like the Publix reusable bags. And I would always be like, yo, it's easy and I don't have to deal with all these plastic bags. In my kitchen, there's like a thing that for a year and a half now, my roommates have just thrown the plastic bags. I literally easily have like 100 Publix plastic bags just sitting there. But
yeah, I would say me and Dimitri save our plastic bags too. And it honestly worked out okay because when I broke my arm, I needed them to shower with for my cast. So it wasn't bad, but yeah.
Obviously, it's good to keep some because you just need a plastic bag sometimes to throw some stuff in, and then you feel bad about the environment.
When it comes to like the landfills and the massive amount of trash we already have on this planet, like, what do you think would be like a viable option to like, what do you like ship it out? I mean, ship it into space or throw it in fucking like a volcano or something?
That is the $1 million question, isn't it? Because we have an entire island in the Pacific the size of Texas made it just of trash. So it's like, it is definitely the question. I mean, if it would be so expensive to ship all that into space, like just ship it straight into the sun. But
that'd be dope though.
Yeah, that would be fire.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a hard question because
yeah. I mean, we spend $780 billion on the military. Maybe we can spend like $2 billion on shipping all of the trash into space.
You can take it up with the government.
Yeah, I'll text the government. I already just texted them.
Be like, hey, yo, send the trash, son.
The only thing with that is there's just so much. Like it would be so many ships, like because that island, the trash island, is insane.
You're not exaggerating. Literally the size of Texas.
Let me double check that trash island.
That's crazy.
It is. Yep, it says the size of Texas.
Wow, I didn't even know there was a trash island. I mean, I figured there was probably. I didn't know there was like an official thing though.
It's in the Pacific. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is what it's called, not trash.
Yeah, that's okay. I've heard of that before.
Yeah, it's the size of Texas. It's above Hawaii, and it just kind of flows in a circle between like going by Japan and, you know, up by Russia up Russia and all the way back by Alaska, Canada, California kind of range. It's in the middle of a few different, I think they're called gyres, and it just like picks up all the trash, just gets picked up into that island.
Damn. Well, I'm glad I asked that question because I just learned a lot about recycling that I didn't know about.
Oh, wait, this one says it stretches twice the area the size of Texas, 620,000 miles.
Yeah, that's not good, right?
No,
that is not good at all. That is not
the opposite of good.
Yeah. That sounds like dog shit. That's not fun.
And and so the issue that comes with that is it's like, what do we do with that trash that we already have when we just continually make so much trash? And, you know, the third world countries, I don't blame them at all, but it's hard because like they have to do something to survive. And so a lot of them, they pollute a lot too, just because of that. And the world doesn't do anything to help those third world countries either. Like the UN doesn't do anything. Like one country that is going to get huge within the next 20 years is Nigeria. I think it has a growing population growth rate. Like it's increasing, and I think it's exponentially supposed to be the biggest within like 10 to 15 years. And they're just decimating their northern forests.
You're saying like biggest country population?
Growth rate population.
Growth rate.
But it will be, I think it's predicted to be the third biggest in like 20 or 30 years.
Jeez, wow.
And so they're just destroying their northern forests, and practically they're just causing desertification, and expanding the Sahara.
So speaking on to cutting down forests, how big of a role, because we talked about how big of a role recycling plays, or like, um, how big is a role does deforestation play within climate change? Because I know we continue to cut down the Amazon every day, which
Well,
is bad.
deforestation, it can be done very sustainably if you replant the trees.
Yes.
Companies, they're not a lot of this deforestation is not for forestry. It's not for lumber. Because most of those companies do replant the trees because it makes it way cheaper for them because they don't have to buy new land.
Yeah.
And just let those trees
Plant the
grow.
saplings.
But they're cutting those trees down for agriculture, which is just high land use. And so what that causes is it causes, you lose so many trees, you lose so much, like just because, trees absorb, they use carbon dioxide for photosynthesis and they produce oxygen. So you're losing as carbon dioxide rates increase, you're losing more of what takes that away too. So it's just like.
So, and you were saying earlier that that's a greenhouse gas. So if the trees aren't absorbing it, is it just staying within
Well, it's going into the atmosphere and the oceans. Because the ocean is, without the oceans, the greenhouse gas, like the carbon emissions, it would be catastrophic. Because the ocean is a huge carbon sink and just holds so much carbon dioxide and like way more, I think more than the atmosphere. Because I think right now in the atmosphere, I think we're a little bit over 400 parts per million of carbon dioxide. And I don't know where we're at. I don't know what the ocean rate is, but it's more than that. But I don't think it might not be measured the same. But for reference, before the Industrial Revolution in 1860s, we were at a little bit over 200 parts per million. And now we're at over 400 parts per million average in the world.
Wow.
And so, when the oceans, absorb all this carbon, it increases the temperature, average temperature in water. And it also decreases the pH, so the water becomes more acidic. And so that's what, causes coral bleaching and everything like that.
I know that's a big problem, is coral around the world is dying at like a increasing rate. And I just got my diving thing, so it better not be gone.
Fucking damn it, Jake. It's all about you, isn't it?
It is. No. Obviously, it's not about me. I wanna be able to see like the coral's like beautiful. It's like it's all one big living organism that is a home for many other animals.
Well, remember when we went in Turks and Caicos and all the coral was bleached?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, in Turks and Caicos?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I know that song. Anyways.
So, that's caused because what gives the coral that color is it's like a special algae grows on that coral. And so it's kind of like a symbiotic relationship. But when the temperatures increase, I believe the algae gets stressed, and practically the algae acts as a sunscreen for coral to protect it from acidic pH and high temperatures and stuff like that. And then when that algae gets stressed, it leaves the coral, and the coral is very defenseless. And then the acidic pH normally would kill the coral, and so that's what that happens. And then it becomes practically fossilized, not fossilized, but it becomes like a rock. But it's not good.
So this is all stems back to climate change, even the coral bleaching.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, I might be switching gears a little bit, but when it comes to like the melting of like the polar ice caps, we've always heard of not the fallacy is not a right word, but like, oh, wasn't Florida supposed to be underwater like 10 years ago, blah, blah, blah. Like being real, like when are we actually going to see?
Is that even like a realistic probability that Florida would be underwater, or is that like an exaggeration?
Well, if what's on Greenland melts, yes, 100%. But which I think should pay tribute to how much ice there is on top of Greenland and in our Antarctica, because it was just recently they discovered, I don't know when it was, recently I'm saying like 10-15 years maybe, they discovered that there was actually land underneath Antarctica. It wasn't just ice the entire way, the whole continent.
There's alien temples and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
We'll talk about that with Jack.
Well, so like to think, so if water levels increase, even like inches, you know how much water that is all to fill the oceans enough that it goes up inches? Like that's an
That is
insane
insane.
amount. And so the prediction rates that it could cover Florida is a crazy amount, but I think through the numbers, I've not looked at it, but
It might I guess, decrease. I can realistically see, based off what you're saying, beaches being like the water, like the high tide coming up, but it like staying there permanently.
Mhm.
But yeah, the polar ice caps melting is something like when I think of climate change, a lot of times that's what I think of, because I feel like as far back as I can go, like you said, the early 2000s, which is when we were born, all I keep hearing was global warming, ice caps melting.
Mm. Well, I mean, there's just so much more to climate change than just the ice caps.
Yeah, yeah.
Ice caps are a huge factor. I mean, I've been to a good amount of national parks where it's just like, oh, here are the glaciers 30 years ago. These are them now. It's just like a speck compared to like what it used to be, and it's crazy. But yeah, it is because with how the Earth is, and like every single area of the Earth is being affected different by climate change. So like, you might not notice it now for you, but and I'm pretty sure it hits the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere a lot harder than it does close to the equator. But yeah, it's no good. It's not good. And there's a lot of fallacies where people are like, they say like stuff like, oh, well, carbon dioxide's plant food. It's good for the plants. We'll have more plants, but that's not. I mean, that's just is an oversimplification of what how plants absorb carbon dioxide and with photosynthesis, because it's not a food. It's not a food for plants. That's not what it is. It's just a small element that they somewhat breathe in for photosynthesis. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio of carbon dioxide to oxygen.
It's just one factor in the whole life of the plant, like how it lives.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I had another thought, I had another thing to say, but then I forgot it. You said it earlier. But I'll get back to it later, I guess, if I remember.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Well, I mean, I can talk about some other stuff too. So, do you know what desertification is?
No.
Yeah, you said it a couple times, but I kind of made up in my head it has to do with
Deserts?
Yeah, so that is, to me, the scariest thing and the most likely thing that's going to destroy the Earth is desertification. And so do you remember Interstellar, when it was just that giant dust storm and they can't grow anything in that soil? And it is because of desertification, because through poor agriculture techniques, deforestation, high land use for infrastructure and stuff like that, you take up all these plants and you deroot them from the soil. And so, plant roots, they help hold soil together. And when there's no plants to water vapor, keeping those soil, if you have wet soil, it's a little more compact than if it's dry.
Mm-hmm.
Without plants, it vaporizes a lot quicker out of the soil, which dries up soils too. And so it makes these soils very easy to be blown away by winds, trade winds, or whatever. So that's why. And so the Sahara and the desert and North Africa, is growing immensely because of all the deforestation they're doing and poor agriculture techniques. That's soil that's on top of that was there and blowing it away, and all the just topsoil. And soil takes thousands of years to accumulate and become healthy and be able to grow plants.
Mm-hmm.
Because if not, it's just sand and just random particles that just aren't. It's not gonna be the same.
Yeah.
And so, and through like poor agriculture techniques like tilling and other stuff like that, you are, just continually destroying the biodiversity in the soil. And that's why they have to put down fertilizers and all this other stuff, because they just continually destroy the soil, and it takes so long for soil to, recuperate, and it's not good either.
So is this something that's happening in America as well, even though it's predominantly happening, like at least at a an increased rate over in Africa.
That's what the Dust Bowl was.
The what was?
Dust Bowl in the 1930s, during the Great Depression.
Sounds
Dust Bowl. You
familiar.
remember
Yeah,
this?
yeah. Sounds like I should know what that is.
Well, practically it was poor agriculture techniques, and the same thing. It was some storm. I don't know if it was a storm, but high wind just started blowing sand or blowing that soil everywhere. And I think it was, I don't know how long it lasted, but it was a long time of just you couldn't go outside because there was just so many particles, particulate matter in the air, and it's
So is it something realistically that could like affect us in the long term, like interstellar levels? Obviously, maybe we're not.
100. We are just absolutely just massacring our forests.
Mhm.
And it's just not good. Like, because it takes so long for this stuff to grow, and for at least in our lifetime, if we destroy that, we're like generations down, we're not gonna see that happen again or like get fixed.
I feel like that's a big problem with trying to solve these challenges in the environment is that a lot of people are like, oh, it's not going to affect me in my lifetime. Oh, I'll be dead by then, and I feel like that's a stigma people need to overcome to like fix this.
No, it definitely takes seeing more than just yourself, I guess, for some of this stuff. And it's with our current administration, has been nothing but harmful to that process as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Trump has sold a good amount of public lands to just oil companies just to use and pump oil out, and then they destroy the surrounding ecosystem doing that. And I remember, I think it's one of the last temperate rainforests in Alaska. He just sold a good portion. I forgot what the area was called, but he just sold it to a Canadian oil company, and that's not going to be good either. And he's actively tried to harm renewable energies. So he's put so many tariffs and other things earn taxes to hurt solar panels. It hasn't been good. And he talks so much crap about wind energy, and has not been healthy for our nation, I guess, in a progressive sense.
Yeah.
How do you think we should approach the conversation of climate change? Because I feel as if that's like a very uncomfortable subject to talk about. It's controversial, yada yada yada. Like, because if you approach it with more of like a looking at the future sense, then people will say, "Oh, that's not true." The Al Gore said that we were going to be underwater in this amount of time. The fallacy they always continue to use. But like, what approach do you think would be a healthy approach to like get to the majority of society to finally understand that what we're doing is very bad for the earth?
Well, it's hard because if so many people just, I don't think, understand that everything has consequence. Everything has reaction. There's nothing in life that you will do that does not have a reaction. So, no matter what, if you are throwing trash or throwing chemicals into anywhere in the environment, you're going to have a cause and effect. And if people don't understand that, I think that is going to be hard to get through people's minds, I guess you could say. And I think it will probably before everyone gets on board, it's going to take some kind of natural disaster again. But then at the same time, they respin everything to not have to do anything with that. And one thing that they do all the time to try and not harm scientists, but decredit them is, so scientists make a lot of predictions. They do modeling of whatever, of climate modeling and everything. That's very complicated, climate modeling. But and so they'll just be like, well, at our current projection, will be, they'd said like probably like 30, or I think it was, there's just different stuff. So it's like, say in the 70s, they'd be like, oh, by 2020, Florida will be underwater or something like that. And then you're like, well, we're here and it's not. But practically what they take in those projections is just like, if we keep going on that path that we were going with no change. And there has been active change throughout the world, which has made, push stuff further back. But And it's just something that people don't get. I don't know. It's just weird. People don't get that.
Yeah.
But it's just another thing to decredit. And they do all they can. They red herrings and impossible, like, you know, end zones is really what they do to just continually push back any climate progression or solutions.
I think it's more of like a ignorance is bliss type of like outlook.
Oh,
like they
yeah,
just, I don't know
is-
what that is, so I can live happily without understanding that I'm kind of destroying my surroundings, you know?
And then you don't want to,
or they hear just one thing and they're like, oh, well, everything else is fake because of this. Instead of just like, we live in such a binary society. It's either black or it's white. There's nothing, like, it's just what we live in. Like, no one looks at the big picture and see all factors. They see one thing and that's it. And it's hard. It's very difficult. And it's not something that we are going to win overnight. And it's not something that is going to be easy at all. So I don't know.
Riley's right. It's something that's going to be hard. It's going to take time. And it starts with us, the people. I would have told you to start recycling, but I guess that's a bunch of bullshit. So
Still recycle because it's going to do the same thing either way. So at least you might have a 12% chance.
Yeah, throw away your cardboard and your glasses and stuff. And plastic, you just might as well. Just
reduce consumption, I guess you could say. Use reusable things, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
No more plastic water bottles. What do you say?
I actually have one last question for you. It's when it comes to recycling, what is the percentage of what is actually being like recycled, like overall? I mean, or is it just like case by case, or because it seems that the way you're describing it, it's like less than 10 to 15% of the amount of stuff we're trying to recycle is actually being recycled or is recyclable.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Wait, I think I have the data right here. Hold on.
Gotta love the data, baby.
Yeah, bro.
Yes, sir.
All right, so
that guy right here.
So this is from the EPA. All right. So this is total municipal solid waste generated by material in 2018. All right, so we have 292 million tons. Okay, that's a big number.
Yeah, that's a lot of fucking.
So that's a big amount of paper and paperboard. 12% of plastic. So it was 292 by 12. Was it? This gonna be like 36 million, like 39 million.
Food 21%. That's crazy.
And then
a lot of shit.
Oh yeah, and then so this is recycling. How much gets recycled? We recycle 69 tons of our 292 million tons.
Wow.
And so 66% of that is paper and paperboard. And so if you go to plastic, where's plastic? All right, so plastic right here. No, where's plastic? It's yellow. Okay, so 4.38% of 69 million, and that is it's gonna be like 3. All right, I'll just do the math.
Right, I'll call it 3.9 million. What's your guess? Dude, aren't you a finance guy? Aren't you an accounting numbers guy?
I'm not a human calculator. I got Excel and formulas and stuff. I just tell Excel what to do, and it.
Oh yeah, so that's just that's 3 million tons get recycled. And so if you go back over here, out of our plastic waste generated, that's 30. Let's see, 292. I still think that's like 38, probably. I'll do the math again.
Gosh, math guy Riley.
Wait, did I? Hold on, I messed up. So that's it's 35 million, or so that's like 35. So this isn't the actual percentage, but let's see. No, that's not the actual how much of what we recycle gets recycled, but I do know that that number is 12% though.
Okay. So what you're showing us
plastic. That's 12% of plastic.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And that's crazy to me because I feel like if I were to ask someone about recycling, a majority of people would say recycle your plastics, like throw your milk carton in them.
Well, I mean, it should be a good thing is what it should be, but we don't have the money or the infrastructure to make it work. And we don't have better, and because of things like recycling, we aren't looking for better methods, which we're settling for what we have for this pretend solution instead of coming up with better, biodegradable. Like there are bioplastics, but they're used at such low percentages and they don't actually even biodegrade. But I don't know. It's settling for our current system is what recycling does.
I feel like a lack of knowledge because I didn't realize how inefficient our current recycling system is.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like a lot of people are just recycling every week thinking it's actually doing a lot of good, like I have for a few years. But I feel like this is good. I hope people have learned that are listening to this, maybe spread the word. Or
there's a few NPR podcasts on this, and there's a whole documentary that I think if you go to the NPR thing, it'll link you to, and it's a really good documentary. And it shows most of the stuff that's messed up in Indonesia.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might put that in the description, honestly.
But Riley, I've learned a lot in the last how long we've been doing this. There's actually been a lot of helpful information that I didn't know, and I'm sure our viewers listening have learned a lot as well.
Well, thank you for having me on. That was a good talk, and I love if you ever want to talk about this thing, have me on again. Or, if there's like there's a natural disaster again or something like that from climate change, just get me back on and we'll talk about it.
Say less. Riley Garlinghouse is our new environmental correspondent for Talking It Out.
Yes. He'll definitely be back on the podcast. I hope you all have learned something. Again, try and be proactive. Every little thing helps. It starts with, you don't think of it as it will just get done by someone else. Inform yourself.
Don't listen to politicians. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, don't listen to them. That's not their job, is not to know this stuff. Their job is to just
get reelected
and stay in power. So this has been the Talking It Out Season 2 intro with Riley.
Hey, guys.